So good afternoon. I'm Christopher Solomon in conversation with Preston. I am Christopher Solomon. I'm the curator of the Inner Life Archive. I am in conjunction with supporting the Recognize Our Pride page, where we are highlighting queer people who are a part of the Divine Nine. Thank you, Preston. How are you feeling today?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
I'm good, just fat. So I just want to thank you for volunteering. Thank you for signing up. Thank you for also allowing us to be your witness. I hope that your story and your journey can inspire somebody else to get free.
Absolutely.
Cool. So, Preston, how do you identify yourself?
So I identify myself as gay, a Black gay man.
Okay.
But I think there's always flexibility there. There's always a spectrum.
What does that mean? Say more.
So for me, I don't think my existence is definitively gay or definitively bisexual. There are attractions to both.
Okay.
I just primarily identify as a Black gay man.
Cool. So walk me through your journey. How did you get to that point when you started identifying as a Black gay man?
It was a journey. So I know when I first came out, I came out as bisexual. I think that was most church kids cop out.
How old were you when you came out? When you came out as bisexual?
That was 16 for me. 16, about to turn 17.
Okay.
So still young, still impressionable.
Mm-hmm.
But there were certain questions that I had to answer for myself. I had just come back from a trip that winter to go visit my dad. And there were just some questions that were kind of lingering from that trip. And that next spring, that trip was that winter. That spring is when I kind of said, yeah, there's something more there. But I didn't want to fully accept the fact that I was gay.
Something happened on this trip? Where did you go trip to? What happened on this trip?
So my parents divorced in 97. So every year we would either go for the summer or for Christmas break. And so that was my last trip. I said I didn't want to do it anymore. My grandmother had passed, my aunt had passed, and my relationship with my dad wasn't anything to write home about. And so I said, I'm of an age now where I don't have to go and visit Chicago. And so I stopped. And I don't think there was anything significant on that trip. But I think I was very reflective on that trip. So I would, go back, I think at that point, 2007. So I was still in high school. At that point, I remember like in middle school, it was my last year of middle school, and I had the yearbook and putting hearts by all the girls' names. I was like, oh, I think she's cute. And then I'm going through, I'm like, oh, he's kind of cute too. That's gay. And so there were always questions there, but being someone that was raised in the church, like we were in church Monday through Sunday.
What denomination did you work in?
Baptist.
Okay.
So grew up Baptist, in church all the time. And if I wasn't in church, I was doing something at school. And so had those feelings coming out of middle school, coming into high school, had a crush on every male teacher that I had. And I was just like, this is really awkward. But I went with it and I said, that's gay. And I never thought about it. I didn't try to pray the gay away per se, but I just tried not to think about it. Got to my junior year, spring of my junior year, was in a relationship with a girl. And I said, you're getting ready to graduate from high school. She was older than me. I'm trying to figure myself out. Let's break up and let me figure who I am out. So like I said, that being bisexual was a good cop out to just saying, hey, I'm gay.
Did you feel forced to choose something, or were you supported in your fluidity?
I won't say I felt forced to choose something. I think in that moment, once I accepted the fact that I was attracted to men sexually, um, the ball just tended to shift over towards guys more. Like the attraction to women never stopped, but my attraction to guys seemed easier, if that made sense. So I wasn't forced necessarily to choose a side. But I think at that time it was just easier, instead of trying to have to explain, hey, I like guys and girls. I think being gay just felt easier, if that makes sense.
Perfect sense. So from junior year until when did you first start saying, hey, I'm a Black gay man?
Ooh.
Because the journey, you grew up in a church, you grew up a child of a divorce, you grew up kind of finding yourself. So like, walk me through how you got to that point where you started identifying as gay.
So that is, I don't think I ever had a coming out as, oh, I'm not bi, I'm gay.
Mm-hmm.
There were different life situations to take place for me
Okay.
that those situations itself kind of forced me to kind of pick a side. And once that decision kind of had to be made, based on my own assumptions, I would say probably fall of 2008 is when I just became, well, this is PG, strictly to men.
You don't have to be PG, we grown, but okay.
Strictly dickly, as they say. So that was really where I just kind of said, okay, I'm a Black gay man. It just kind of happened. There was no clear moment where it was just like, no, you're not bisexual, you're really gay.
That's cool. Who supported you during the season?
It was definitely my mom, which in the beginning, when I told her, I did not think it was going to be my mom.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a conversation at Target. I remember this vividly. And I said, hey, mom, I think I'm bi. Her response was, oh, that's fine. There's medicine for that.
I'm sorry.
So I'm like,
I'm sorry she said that.
okay. But she, in a later conversation, she thought I meant I was having a conversation about being bipolar.
Oh.
And so there was that misunderstanding with the conversation. But in the moment, I was like, oh, damn, this is going to be a pray the gay away situation. And that kind of hurt because my mother was, well, still is, like a very crucial and important part of my life. So to feel like you're going to lose the person who is like your rock, has been your rock through everything. It's difficult. It's difficult. And so we had that conversation at the Target. And then with that conversation, I started reaching out to family friends that were ministers. And all of them said, there's nothing wrong with you liking men. As long as you have a relationship with God, you're good. And so the timing could have probably been better. But Mother's Day 2008, we're on our way out to church. And I said, Mom, I had a conversation with Minister so-and-so, and they said, there's nothing wrong with being bisexual. And she said, bisexual? What are you talking about? And so again, the timing was just all wrong. And so we rushed off to church, and it still just was not the moment, wasn't the time. And we later had that conversation, and she went from being my rock to really being like an anchor for me.
Mhm.
Um, once we got over the fact that we weren't talking about being bipolar, um, she was actually able to really be there, and she shared some things and some prayers that she had. Because I was not always the rough around the edges tomboy kid. Um,
What were you?
I was apparently I was soft and a soft little delicate flower, because I look at some of these pictures and it's twangy. It's twangy. Like my parents had to know.
But
Um,
did you feel soft? Maybe that's how they experienced you. Maybe you didn't feel that way. Maybe you were
um,
something else.
I think when my mom started hearing me come home and say the kids were calling me soft or calling me a girl, um, it didn't really click for me. It kind of hurt my feelings, but it didn't really resonate.
Mhm.
But me coming home and telling her that, her prayer was that I'm able to find myself,
Mhm.
and that she'd be able to support me in whatever it is that comes my way. And so when she told me that, it kind of made sense as to why our relationship continued to grow stronger, um, even after coming out.
It's amazing. Most people don't have that.
Yeah. And I was definitely blessed, because the rest of that, like I said, the rest of that coming out year, I had some traumatic things to take place. Um, and she was there through all of it.
All of it. So how has it been as a Black gay man building and finding your community?
Being in DC, so I grew up in the DMV area.
Okay.
Um, I'd never had to search for that community. Um, because the reality of it is, a lot of the spaces that I was in, being in theater and the arts and music, they're already there.
Mhm.
Um, and so I didn't really have that issue. But for me, coming out when I did, it was my junior year going into my senior year. Um, and then I transitioned into college. So you're trying to find your community anyway. Um, and at the time, my RA was gay. Um, the president of SGA was gay. A lot of the people in SGA, the guys were gay.
What
And
school
so
did you go to?
I went to Bowie State University.
Got it. Okay.
And so we kind of shared our own community. My RA was actually the first person to take me to a gay club.
What was the
Uh,
first one? What was the first place you went to?
I think it was called Apex in
Oh,
DC. Um, little white space, but it still was gay nonetheless.
nonetheless.
And so I was able to like find my community very fast. And I didn't naturally seek out like gay spaces, because that just was never really my thing. That wasn't really what I was looking for. I was just looking to feel like I fit in.
So what do you mean you didn't weren't looking for gay spaces? What does that mean?
Say it again.
What does it mean you weren't looking for gay spaces? What does that mean?
So I think most people, when they find out or when they come to grips with the fact that they are gay, they
Mhm.
want to be in spaces that affirm them. Um, and that's typically going to be, especially in college, LGBTQ groups, the ballroom scene, just different things that kind of speak to their gayness.
Mhm.
Um, but for me, I was always the kid that was like right under popular. And so it was like I was popular adjacent. I always hung out with all the cool kids, but I was never quite popular myself. And so
Mhm.
for me, the community I was looking for was finding a place where I fit, where I was able to just kind of slide right in. Um, and not have to self-identify everywhere I went. So that was my mindset when I first entered college, was just wanting to fit in. It wasn't necessarily looking for those gay and affirming spaces. Now transitioning to now where I'm not in a city where it's predominantly Black.
Where you know?
I'm in Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
In the Midwest in Ohio. And it's not as Black. And so not only am I trying to find just Black spaces, but trying to find Black gay spaces is like looking for a unicorn.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I've always had the mindset, if you don't have it and you have the wherewithal to create it, create it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the husband and I, we created an entity called Columbus Melanin Pride. And we started doing that here, I think during the pandemic. So 2021 was our first year.
Mm-hmm.
Success because we were locked up. Everybody wanted to get out. We had flown in some adult entertainers, the things that get the kids happy, get the kids excited.
Okay.
And it was just a really good time because we weren't, most people were not used to that here in Columbus.
Yeah.
Tried it again last year, and because we were outside again, you had all these different things to speak to different parts of people. And so
Like what?
Successful. Here in Columbus, especially during the summertime, you have festivals almost every weekend,
Mm-hmm.
which I do enjoy. Different cultures, different ethnicities, different subsets, food truck festivals, jazz and rib festivals. There's just different things that speak to different parts of people. And so there were so many different options for people that they weren't locked up in the house. And first festival that kind of came about, they're just like, oh, I want to do that. So the interest was not there. And so that has kind of been my challenge here in Columbus is, like I said, having the mindset of where if it's not there, you kind of want to create it.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes you can't create it. Sometimes you just have to help set up the platform for others to pitch in. It's not always a thing of you have to be Superman and create it yourself. Sometimes you just have to create the space for others to be able to do that, and break that ceiling for other people to come along and add their 2 cents, or someone else add their 2 cents. And then you're kind of creating a community as opposed to trying to paint that community yourself.
Yeah, or do it smaller.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have grand designs and not the infrastructure to support it. So sometimes it's like maybe not a full weekend, maybe just a night at a bar might be a place to start. Or
yeah, that
collaborating with the because we as young people, we don't often know the history of being Black and gay in our cities, and you're not from Ohio, so you don't really know, maybe not. But we've been gathering forever, because gathering was survival for us as Black people, as Black queer people especially. So there might be a legacy of gathering in Columbus that was lost because of money, right? Or because of just time. So maybe the drag queen locally may know, maybe the older trans person who's been in the community for a long time may know. But my point is, like, you may not necessarily need to take the full brunt of doing the entire thing by yourself, or doing a big one, maybe a small night. Might be more feasible to do for the community serving. As it grows, then you can go back to the original idea, which is something more bigger. Maybe.
And I completely agree. That was part of the hard conversation that we had, was dialing it back, which, it's kind of hard being somebody that you had DC Pride, DC Black Pride.
which is a big deal. DC,
Yeah,
Miami, New York,
exactly.
Atlanta.
Philly, it's huge.
Yeah.
And so I also worked with Philly Black Pride, maybe from 2017 to about 2019, helping them with their graphic design. And so having that experience from Philly and DC, it was like, okay, this is what is needed to kind of bring the people in. And it was gaining the interest of people outside of Columbus, but the people that were in Columbus, that wasn't really their speed. They're so used to having to travel to find that experience, and that's okay. That's
How
okay.
far are you from Cleveland?
Cleveland is about 2.5 hours, but Cleveland doesn't have a Black gay.
No, I'm just thinking about like just coalition building.
Yeah.
Right. Like nobody has one cool rather than in Columbus, maybe Ohio Black Pride, and kind of gathering people in the state and the area to kind of get together. I'm just thinking anyway.
Right. Yeah.
Where do you find the most safe being a Black gay man?
At home with my husband.
How long have you been married?
I've been married. It will be 5 years in July.
Okay.
It will be 5 years in July. So
a big jump from being bisexual to not being sure to struggling to having a whole man. That's a big jump.
It is. And it took a lot of failed relationships to get to this point. To want to say this is the guy I want to spend the rest of my life with. So
how was married life? How has 5 years been as a married man?
Married life has been great for me. I usually hear people say, the first 2 years are the hardest.
Yeah.
First 2 years for us was from about 2018 to 2020. And I think we had like our honeymoon season that entire time. And then reality started to sink in. It's like, okay, let's go buy a house. So bought a house, got 2 fur babies, then the pandemic hit. And so we were stuck in the house with each other. And that time that was spent really forced us to continue to fortify our relationship, continue to check on the different aspects of our foundation, and do tune-ups, check in, make sure what it is that we were doing was sufficient. Making sure that we were happy, making sure that the love that we have for each other, how do we grow that? How do we continue to build upon that? And so we took that time to really do the work.
Would you do it in couple counseling or you just did it one-on-one?
One-on-one, on our own.
Go.
Yeah.
What brings you the most joy as a Black gay man?
What brings me the most joy as a Black gay man?
Or what brings you the most joy about being Black and gay?
Probably watching, especially being here in Columbus, it's watching others be able to live and be liberated freely. And to know that I helped to build some of that or added to some of that, just kind of speaks to me as a person. I love to give back. I love to create. I love to see other people thrive and enjoy themselves in things that I've created, which can kind of come off a little egotistical, but just being, feeling like you've left some kind of a legacy, and watching others be able to thrive in that. That's kind of what brings.
Well, speaking of legacy, you are a member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. Let's talk about the journey with that. So why Sigma? What's the journey towards becoming a Sigma?
So that's a long story.
Okay. Well, we got a little bit of time.
We got a little bit of time.
The abridged version.
So I grew up with at the time, Elite 8, all throughout my family.
At what time? How old is you? Me at the time.
So if we're being honest, Iota Phi Theta didn't really hit the scene with the NPHC until 1997. And so
93. It's still been 20 years, or 25, almost 30 years.
it's been a minute, you know.
They
But
love hating the girls.
growing up in my household, it was Elite Eight. I didn't know what that new organization was.
And you crossed 21, so I'm sure you have no.
Oh, at that time, absolutely. But I think the difference for me is I was kind of immersed in Greek life my entire life. So my dad's an Alpha. So grew up with seeing his paddles and paraphernalia everywhere. My mother is Greek adjacent. She was a Q Pearl. So I grew up hearing her story.
Pearl.
You said what?
My mom too was a Q Pearl.
Okay. Absolutely. So I heard all of those stories about her brothers and all of that. Grandmother is a Delta. Grandfather was a Sigma.
Mm-hmm.
Aunt is an AKA. A bunch of aunts and godmothers that are Deltas. I grew up immersed in it. And so I was always curious as a kid, like elementary school, curious about what all of this was. And then once my parents divorced, we moved back to Chesterfield County, Virginia, which is where my mom and her family were from. And she went to like some kind of a Delta ball with some friends she went to school with. One of those Delta friends worked at Howard University. So that brought us back up to the DMV. And with that, again, immersed in it. Every time I would come visit the campus with my mom or go to Howard's bookstore, it was all around. So that curiosity just continued to grow. And then I would meet some of her students and they're like, oh, you should do Kappa Esquires or whatever they're called. Or some of these other youth auxiliary.
What it's called.
You said what?
Go Kappa League.
Yeah, that. And
you know what it is. Stop acting like you don't know what it is.
I know what the Sigma Beta Club is.
Oh my God. We doing that tonight. Okay.
I know what that is, but there, like I said, there was always that interest. There was always that wanting to find that brotherhood. And then to kind of like speed it up, once I got to college, I just knew I was going to be a Q because that's what I grew up hearing my mom talk about. And when I got there, I said, this ain't the story she told me. This is something completely different. And I said, no, that's not for me. And so not only was I finding myself sexually in college, I was finding myself trying to figure out what did I want to do Greek-wise. And so there were lots and lots of interest meetings, lots and lots of trying to figure out what was the best fit. Because for me, because I had done research on all of them, including IOTA, I found parts of myself in all of their mission statements. All of them talk about service. But what actually stood to me, not just what I saw on campus, but what does your overarching organization stand for? And so there was just a lot of soul searching. But what got me to Sigma, I'm gonna shorten that. Sigma felt like home for me. And I kind of flashed back to Welcome Week at Bowie, and you had all the Greeks going up. You had the Alphas going up, and they had this Uncle Phil from Fresh Prince vibe, just very prestigious and had their airs about them. But I had my own blocks because of my father. Kappas were stuck up. Qs were nasty. IOTAs were fun and got the crowd going. But Sigmas for me felt like home, reminded me of my grandfather, just really down to earth and getting the work done.
Mhm.
But that never stood out to me because, like I said, I was always popular adjacent. And
Mhm.
so there was always me wanting to fit in. And for me at the time, that was not Sigma.
Mhm.
And so it wasn't until I want to say my junior year of college. And I said, you know what? I really rock with the Sigmas. Went to an interest meeting, didn't make it. And it caused me to question some things.
Mhm.
And so just kind of flashing forward to spring 21 when I crossed, um, the timing was better. I
Okay.
knew who I was a little bit more as a man.
Mhm.
I knew who I was with my ideals, my morals, and had a better understanding of how I fit into the organization as opposed to how the organization fit for me.
Mhm.
And so I'm grateful. Like, you know, it's a little sad that I didn't cross an undergrad. But
Sad.
sad because you kind of miss that feeling of really being not only immersed in the work, but having the fun aspect.
Mhm.
Once you get to grad chapter, it's all about business. Like, yeah, we have our parties, yeah, we have our social engagements. Um, but your mindset has to change. Like your focus has to be the community. Uh,
Mhm.
and I think that's part of the reason why we get a lot of that pipeline from undergrad to alumni is so muddy,
Mhm.
because I feel like a lot of the kids from undergrad can't change that mindset as quickly and see the importance of paying money and doing all the things that are needed to be active and financial in a grad chapter.
So do you have any thoughts on why you didn't make line? Um, were you openly queer on campus?
Um, I tried not to be openly queer, but I don't think that. I think it was just kind of written all over my face and my being. Um,
Were there any openly queer people part of DNI on Bowie's campus? Not knowingly be queer. I mean, like people like open about their queerness.
not many. Uh, the SJ president was Nyota. Um,
You know, it was a big in Maryland.
yes, I mean Baltimore. So they're huge. They were huge on my campus. Um, I think that is the only org that had like any open members while we were on the yard.
Open IOTAs? I don't. I think I actually follow a boy on Instagram with openly IOTA. Openly IOTA. He's not
Yeah,
openly gay.
I knew I knew three
Oh, okay.
um that were open. Of course, two of them had just graduated, but um yeah, I knew of three.
Because there's some politics around respectability, especially at black colleges, and I can count on one hand how many people I know who openly queer and who crossed the undergrad. And I can count on, and out of that five, maybe even smaller than that, people who were openly gay, right? There's a boy I remember was a cheerleader and was in Salem who was an alpha. And I was like, does everybody know he gay? I mean, I think I know he gay. He looked gay, but like, how did this work? And he a jewel on this big line. So I'm like, how does this work?
Yeah.
It doesn't work. I'm just saying it was something that I had never seen before. I was why the page is really important. I'm like not just like highlighting y'all, but also like getting your stories. Like, cool, like what was it like being on the yard? What was it like going to intake? What was it like having your initiation process, right? Because some people were scared of like, locking up, scared of like being shunned, scared of the homoeroticism. Like there's all the stuff that comes up that people don't talk about, and the straight people control the narrative, right? They control what it is and not happening around queerness in the organization. And oftentimes we don't hear enough y'all lived experiences on like what it's like kind of being members, which is what we're doing right now. So what has it been like? You crossed in COVID during COVID. So what has it been like kind of marrying your queerness to your love for your organization?
So my journey to Sigma, I will always say was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So coming in, of course, did my research on the chapter, And on the surface, those that were involved with the intake process were very affirming.
Mm-hmm.
My chapter actually has the only two-time international president of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, who is also a gay man. And so the optics of that.
Back up. You have a national president who was gay?
Yes,
Look at y'all.
we do. We do. And there were some presidents since then that, you know, but it's not open. Again, it's that conversation of it's not going to be something that's open because of politics. And
But the
to
fact
be
that
honest,
they exist, though, the fact that they exist and it's known is still like progress.
yes.
It's
Yes.
different if that person had a wife and kids, and that's
Yeah.
that's different.
You know, so that was, part of the optics of joining my chapter. And my intake process, it's cool, fine, dandy, because again, it was with those affirming brothers. Once I got into the chapter and started doing work, because literally not as soon as I got in, I was helping our chapter to do graphic design work before I even made it in, which means I was actually the one who designed the flyer for our informational. So fun fact. So I was already doing work.
Hey, come on, plug.
I was doing the work, got in, and wasn't really as received as I would have thought I would have been.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there were lots of different things that played to that. One, it was during the pandemic. So the chapter really being as involved with the process was not there.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, all right, who are these three cats that are trying to come into my frat? So there was some of that. There was some blatant homophobia. And it kind of made my first couple of months in Sigma very undesirable. And it kind of forced me to look within
Mm-hmm.
and to go back to my why. And my why was I wanted to join something where I could be of an asset,
Mm-hmm.
take my talents and my strengths and my abilities, and partner with like minds that have the same thought process, have the same ideals, morals, goals, aims, and be able to help that organization that's been around for 100+ years to continue to grow and speed our cause on its way.
What was it like coming out to your line brothers?
They knew. They knew.
What has been like kind of being married in that? Because oftentimes, especially is the journey between becoming a fully formed black gay man and then getting married and then to become Greek after this season, right? Some people already were Greek, but nobody prepares you on blending those worlds, right? You bring your partner to the gala, to the functions, to the picnics, to the things. How do you navigate that space?
So I'm unapologetic. And that was a part of the issue that some of the chapter brothers had was I wasn't hiding it. It's all over my social media. And so I'm not getting ready to say, you know what, I'm going to leave my husband at home because I give two F's about what you think. If we have a social event and I'm like, hey, babe, you want to go? And he says, yes, I'm bringing my husband and we're going to be there and I'm going to be myself, just like you're able to be your, adulterous, alcoholic, whatever kind of ways that we don't talk about. And so I've always been very unapologetic and been very clear that I'm married. I'm not dating. I'm not single and looking. I'm actually married. I've a whole commitment. And so I'm never going to put any parts of me back into a closet for 3 letters. I don't care what it is. And so that's always the attitude that I've had being in Sigma. And so
2 years in, you're a baby.
I am still a baby. I am still a baby, contrary to what people think. I had someone to ask me, like, how long have you been in? Because I feel like you've just always been around. No.
We also grew up similar to me. You grew up immersed in the world, so you were old before you had letters, right? Invisible letters. That's part of what they are experiencing.
Yeah. And that's probably the easiest way to explain it. And that's part of the reason why I had so much notoriety on campus, was because I was able to do the graphic design for everybody, with respect to their organizations, their symbols, their crests, making sure I was using the right crest, because, you know, the sororities, their crests change like every blue moon. And so making sure I kept up with the times. And so I got a lot of respect for doing that. And so with me doing that, that continued on beyond college. And so I would always have people say, hey, are you Greek? No, I just got mad respect for the D9. And so once it finally happened, it was just like, okay, he's a Sigma. There was never a, oh my God, you know, cool. That's really dope. No, it was just like, okay, we were waiting. We just needed you to choose.
Dope. What is one thing Phi Beta Sigma can do differently or better to be more inclusive to Black queer people?
I will say that I'm actually very proud of the work that our international president has done, since he came in. I remember last year in June, and the SG Rose were the first ones to put up their pride post from headquarters. And I said, okay, that is dope. And so I remember sharing that to my stories, and I tagged our international president.
Mm-hmm.
And my caption said, it would be dope if the brothers of Phi Beta Sigma could get on board.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say they were the second or third, to come and join that train. And so for me, that was definitely progress. Not saying that I helped to bring that about,
Mm-hmm.
but to feel seen. Yeah, our president got some backlash from a lot of the brothers, but
Sure.
it was a necessary step, because a lot of the influential, and I stand on this hill, a lot of the influential people, a part of Sigma and a part of a lot of these organizations, are queer adjacent. They are a part of somebody's queer subculture.
Who the queer? I don't know any notable queer Sigmas. I mean,
Brother,
Carver was kind of queer, bisexual-ish, but
you said who?
George Washington Carver.
Yeah. Brother Elaine Locke.
This is true.
Is
I forgot he was a Sigma. He is a Sigma.
He is a Sigma. He's and very held to a very high regard within Phi Beta Sigma.
Is he really? Because he gay, like he
Exactly,
like an elder gay. In
exactly.
the time that he was Lane Luck, he was an elder gay,
Yes.
like openly gay, like New Negro Harlem Renaissance gay.
Yes,
But
whole,
has
whole buildings named after him at Howard. But
every Black community has a Lane Luck building somewhere.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is usually the first. There are always rumors about a lot of our founders being gay.
Mm-hmm.
And then members throughout the years, again, like I said, we've had presidents, international presidents, we've had general board members. There are people that have helped to really sustain the legacy of our organization. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them are gay or queer. Mm-hmm. And it's, for you to want to erase that for your feeling or your want of masculinity or manliness, you're erasing a lot of the legacy that has helped to bring our organizations forward. And so I stand firm on that. A lot of our organizations, the fabric of our organizations, had LGBTQ written all over it.
Have you noticed, seen, or looking for community of queer people who are Sigmas within your organization?
So I have my own little circle
Okay.
of queer Sigmas, and I kind of knew of the gay Sigmas
Okay.
just because we kind of hung in the same circles. But I won't say I necessarily searched for it. It just kind of found me. Um, and within different cities, you know, there are different small circles, and we'll come together at like different conferences and things of that nature.
That's dope.
Um, but I think it just speaks to Sigma. Like we just try to band together. As a whole, we have our own internal things that we may discuss or have conversations about. But to the general public, we're Sigmas. And you know, that's a battle within itself. People give us all kinds of flack. So we try to bond together and band together as much as we can.
Dope. So I want to thank you again for giving us your time, energy, and sharing a beautiful story about your journey in queerness and Sigma. Where are you working on? What can we support you with?
Right now I'm actually in the middle of working on my album. And so that has been fun. um,
Okay. Well, then let us know your Instagram and social media so we can tag you and stuff. We can find you and listen to your music.
Absolutely. So my personal Instagram is Big Bluther. It's BIU BLUTH3R. And then the page where I share most of my graphic design work and music is Kindred Official. So it's KINDR3D official. And that's on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Dope. So thank you again. It is what an honor it is to be a witness.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.